I am now a grandmother. Please leave me alone, screamed a victim, brutally gang raped when she was a teenager. Hi everyone, welcome to Criminal Confession. I am Srushti, and we couldn't be more thankful to all of you who have tuned in for our first episode on this podcast. I am your host for this episode, and I hope I give you the chills you're here for. In each episode, we'll dive headfirst into compelling and perplexing cases that have captivated the world, shedding light on the twisted minds and the chilling events that shocked communities far and wide. Our goal is to uncover the truth and provide a platform for the victims whose voices were silenced by tragedy. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at criminalconfession_ for daily updates. And with that, let's dive into our first case. This is the story of around 250 girls who were brutally raped and blackmailed in Ajmer. This is the story of Ajmer Scandal 1992. The major reason for choosing this case was that our team had never heard about it. In this episode, we'll introduce you to the intriguing details of this baffling crime. We'll paint a vivid picture of the victims, the setting, and the circumstances around the incidents. With no media coverage, it's up to us to unveil the truth one layer at a time. While the lack of public awareness presents a challenge, it also allows us to approach this case with fresh eyes and an open mind. We'll examine the evidence, speak with those who have long carried the weight of this secret, and together we'll try to unravel the truth. Criminal confession serves as a reminder that behind every well known crime, there are countless others waiting to be discovered. We aim to give a voice to the victims, to honor their memory, and to inspire a renewed commitment to uncovering the truth. Our story begins on a quiet evening in the city of Ajmer, where the tranquil streets were about to witness a crime that would shatter the illusion of safety. It was a night that would change the lives of many forever. A man named Farooq was out on the street of Sophia Secondary High School with a full-fledged plan of luring at least one girl from this school. Now, who is Farooq Chisti? He was the president of the Congress Youth Party and the member of a very influential family that oversaw the caretaking of the famous Dargah in Ajmer. He was so influential and was well known to cause violence, gang protests, and abuse. Ajmer was scared of him, and some articles suggest that he was the president of this particular party for the same reason. Now, he had successfully lured a girl from the 8th grade from Sophia Secondary High School. Probably he went out with her a few times, gained her trust, and then invited her over to his farmhouse. Here, she was intoxicated and was taken advantage of and was raped by multiple men. Additionally, the perpetrators took nude or otherwise revealing photographs of her. She was promised that the photographs would be deleted only if she manages to bring one more girl to the farmhouse. And this is how the sinister cycle of assault and blackmail continued to ruin lives of more than 250 girls in Ajmer. Now, to give you some perspective, this case is from the 1990s. Even though stuff hasn't changed as much even today, I can see women being blamed for being victims, also because of the perpetrators' power back then and the influence they had in the city. This prevented women from speaking up, and some even committed suicide because of the trauma caused. Around 8 girls had taken their own lives at Sophia Secondary, and that's how it came into limelight. How and why are girls from the same school committing suicide? Now, a question that even I had when I was researching about this case is that were they strictly from the same school? Well, there are reports that suggest that some girls were also from the Savitri school in Ajmer. Perhaps These schools had only girls, where students just interacted with guys outside school, and hence he might have thought it will be easier to target such girls and women. Now in 1990s, photographs were in the form of negative reels that were developed at photo studios. These photos were never deleted, but were distributed when were given to a studio to develop. These photos then spread like wildfire and eventually reached the parents. Now the increase in suicides made sense to them. But not one article, not one FIR was written or filed against the culprits. It has been reported that local authorities were aware of the events up to a year prior, but chose to stall taking legal action. This, even today, does not affect the popularity of the school and still remains the top choice amongst schools in Ajmer. Not many women stood up for themselves due to the stigma attached to this case. Sushma, one of the victims, spoke to the print recently. According to Sushma, her link to the gang was an acquaintance called Kailash Soni. He lured her into a deserted building, raped her, and invited several other men to assault her. Sushma was only 18 years old at the time. She said, I was too naive to understand what they did to me. They took turns to rape me. One would rape me, while another would click pictures as he waited for his turn. After doing all this, Nafis, one of the culprits, gave me 200 rupees and told me to buy some lipstick and powder. Sushma also got pregnant. Her mother tried everything to induce a miscarriage but failed. She said, a devil's child can't be miscarried. And so was the case with this one. The child was born dead. During the interview, even thinking about the photographs made her feel anxious. I have two nieces. They do not know what happened to me, Sushma explained, and constantly asked for reassurance that a picture of her face would not be published. Now, to provide our audience a better insight to the case, we have compiled some images of the documents, crime scenes, and case updates on our Instagram at criminalconfession underscore. Leave us a comment telling us what you think about this case so far. You can also drop in some suggestions for our future episodes. Coming back to the case. Ajmer Scandal was a toxic mix of political patronage, religious reach, impunity, and small town glamour. But this case also goes to prove how journalism has a huge impact on the society. And Navjyoti newspapers in the 1990s did a great job to get this case the attention it deserved. The closure seemed so far to these victims and their families. They started moving from Ajmer to other cities for a new start. It became harder for these victims to find someone who agreed to marry a rape victim. These women were discarded from the society and were shamed for something they deserved care, sympathy, and love for. This case boils my blood every time I hear about it. My heart goes out for the victims and their families who could never find justice and had to leave everything behind in Ajmer, bury their trauma and anger inside them, and continue with life as if nothing had happened. This was one of the darkest nights Ajmer had ever seen, and nobody knew why. These men still lorded over Ajmer. They had all the money to buy Royal Enfields, Java bikes, and open jeeps. They visited the Soul Gym in the city and styled themselves after Sanjay Dutt with long hair and chains around their neck. But the darkest nights have the brightest suns. The editors of Navjyoti, Deenbandhu Chaudhary and Santosh Gupta, admitted that the local law enforcement authorities were aware of the scandal almost since a year before the story broke, but they allowed the local politicians to stall the investigations. Finally, the police lodged an FIR against 8 of the accused. Further investigations led to 18 men in total being charged, and tension ran high in the town for several days. People took to the streets to protest, and tension in the community grew. Still, girls and women withdrew their statements as there was a threat to their lives. At last, just two women held their ground and did not withdraw their FIRs. This case also involves an infamous murder of a politician that was involved in assaulting these girls. Madan Singh was a journalist who wrote about this case and printed an image of the culprit with one of the victims, which he found with his co worker who planned to blackmail the girls again with the same photograph, which is available on our Instagram at criminalconfession_. This also led to a 2-day bandh in Ajmer and heavy rivalry between the journalist and the culprits. In very few days, journalist Madan Singh was shot in a hospital by one of the culprits whose sons were just 10 and 12. 30 years later, these sons were recently arrested for shooting three people out of revenge who shot their father, journalist Madan Singh, for writing about this case. But Madan Singh was truly a hero. After his article was published on the very first page of this newspaper, it gained attention. The investigation started and the case was taken to court. Even though there might be more people who were involved, but 18 men were charged and were sentenced to life imprisonment, including Farooq, Namiz, and Anwar, the masterminds of this case and members of the Khadim family. But we all know there are end numbers of loopholes in this nation's judiciary. Farooq was proved mentally ill in court in 1998, was released from prison, then he was again charged and proven guilty in 2008, and was again released in 2013 and currently stays in Ajmer. But even after so many years of investigation, some culprits are freely roaming in Ajmer, and one of them is rumored to be in the USA. While I'm not justifying Madan Singh's sons for committing murders, I find this fact so ironical that even after 20 long years of investigation, with all the evidence and proof, court could not provide justice to these 250 innocent young girls. But Madan Singh's sons, Surya Pratap and Dharma Pratap, were arrested within months. When I saw the pictures in the media, both of them smiled and said, "We have no remorse for what we have done." This case is like a blot on our culture. This case still haunts some people. Even today, people refrain from getting married to women from Ajmer, thinking she might be a victim of this case, and that is honestly so heartbreaking. With every surrendering, sentencing, or any other development in the case, even after 30 years since the incident, the survivors had to return to court, causing them to relive the horror over and over again. It is also believed that the culprits had links to agencies like Pakistan's ISI, PFI, and Dawat-e-Islam. Now, why do I think all of them might have committed such a heinous crime? Well, I think he was so confident in his power, he knew nobody would report it, and even if they did, he would easily get out of it. Powerful individuals may perceive that they have less chance of being held accountable for their actions due to their influence, connections, or ability to manipulate the legal system. But even then, these victims still have to recall their trauma in court. Some of them have become grandmothers in the hope of justice.